Hey guys, welcome back to another tech informative video here on the Failures Anonymous channel. Back at it for a long needed update on my Radeon experience. Let's dive right into it. I will say, part of the reason why there hasn't been an update video as of late is that my Asus TUF 6700 XT has been performing admirably on every game I've played these last couple months. That and I'm a work slave to the big boss man, so it's hard to find time to put these videos together. But we're back at it and ready to get into it. Games like Helldivers 2, Halo Infinite, Battlefield 6, Ghost of Tsushima, Jedi Survivor, and Star Trek Online have all been running very well with no issues. Helldivers 2 and Halo Infinite have not changed in performance since the last time I mentioned these two games. Star Trek Online, which is not a very demanding game by any means, the majority of the time is just maxing out my monitor's refresh rate at 240 FPS. Ghost of Tsushima, on high settings, runs on average at about 111 FPS, allowing me to really take in all the beautiful landscapes and sceneries this game has to offer. Jedi Survivor is in the same boat, running roughly at about 104 FPS on average on high settings. Then finally, the most surprising result I've seen with the older RX 6700 XT was Battlefield 6 with all the graphics settings cranked up on high. The game runs on average at about 80 FPS at 1080p. Now, let's dive into the issue that I experienced these last couple months. The only issue I've had these past couple months has been using my old Oculus Rift S to play Steam VR games. I've had issues with the VR headset displaying everything green and causing the experience to be very glitchy. Things like not loading into games and being glitched through the floor. I've found with the research I've done that the more recent Radeon drivers have not had the old Oculus headsets in mind, rather favoring support of the newer Meta headset connections to PC. Most people found it to be beneficial to roll back drivers to allow the headset to interface properly. However, the driver versions recommended for VR were also driver versions I had issues with in the past playing certain games. That, and I am looking to upgrade my headset at some point anyways, so it hasn't been that big of a deal to not be able to play VR games. That, and I don't play VR games that often, so it hasn't been a huge issue for me. Besides this one issue I've had, I have nothing but good things to say about this card. Now, since this is probably one of the shortest updates I've given on the card so far, I've decided to go ahead and do the Adrenaline Tour also in this video. However, I know I originally was planning to do an in-depth tour of the whole app and explain everything down to the very last detail. But upon writing the script for this video, I realized that it was going to be pages long of information that would most likely put you all to sleep. So I decided to just focus on more exciting and interesting features Adrenaline has to offer. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome to our AMD Adrenaline Tour. Glad you could be here. Now, I will say, one thing I just want to mention right off the bat, I am not recording this tour with the AMD Adrenaline software like I said I would, due to the fact, well, two reasons. One, this is actually the second take I've had to do, just because I updated my drivers after I did the first take and realized they changed some things, and I wanted to make sure that my recording was the most up-to-date it could be. But I will say that when I tried recording the first take, I used their software and I had some issues with it being really buggy. My audio would cut in and out, the screen would flicker. It wasn't that well designed, I think. That software just wasn't very good. And I think AMD knew it as well, because there used to be a recording tab up here at the top. And it seems like they got rid of it. So it seems like AMD is either giving up on it entirely or taking the feature off for now so that they can work on it and maybe better optimize it. Which, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed. I think it's a nice thing to have included in your driver software. But if it doesn't work, then yeah, I would totally take it off the library of features that this app has to offer in order to maybe go back to the beginning and redo it from the ground up. But that being said, let's go ahead and cover the rest of the stuff here. Obviously, we have our ad here showing off all their stuff, all their partnerships and whatnot. I think that's pretty typical of any company. Up here, you have your stats here for your hardware, which is a nice thing to have. You can look at your performance grade for your game advisors, which this is actually for DaVinci. So DaVinci Resolve. Why AMD thinks I'm playing a game when I open DaVinci Resolve is a different question, but this is where you'd see your game advisors for different games that you're playing. I think I had one up here for Jedi Survivor before I updated my drivers, and it said that it was excellent, which is good. And then obviously up here you have your driver versions, whether you are current or if there's an update, it'll usually have the current version you're at and then the most up-to-date version to the right. But in this case, I'm already at the current version, so it's already up to date, which is good. Moving on, I'm going to skip this one for now. We're going to come back to it just because there's something in here I want to talk about. We're going to skip to performance. And under performance, we have our stats overlay for all of our hardware and software. So you can see I have my CPU, GPU utilization, as well as my GPU temp and FPS. Under tuning, we have our overclock software, which I did attempt, as I stated in a previous video. But I would say steer clear of trying to overclock your GPU unless you know what you're doing. I, for one, didn't really know what I was doing and just following along in a YouTube video, and I don't think I followed along correctly, and it caused performance issues and crashing in games. So I think that unless you have a good idea of what you're doing, do a lot of research and make sure you know what you're doing before you attempt to do so, just because you can risk damaging hardware. Then if you go to settings, we have some settings here for our overlay and our stats, which is pretty cool. And then we have smart technology, which I actually don't really know what some of these are for. I kind of have an understanding of what the privacy view is for. Obviously, it's supposed to help keep your screen information private, but I have not looked into this much. I don't really need any of these, but if you're interested, I would definitely look it up and see what they are. You may find another video that might explain them better, but yeah, these are here if you want them. Now we're going to cut to the most important thing I want to talk about, obviously, which is gaming. So obviously for the gaming tab, we can see that we have our game advisor here, and I can tune the performance to get better performance out of it. However, this is DaVinci Resolve and not a game, so I'm not worried about GPU performance in this case. But it's nice to have, especially if you know that's for an actual game. Now, there's a lot of settings here, and I think a lot of these are nice to have, but most of these settings are only going to be for specific people, so I would definitely, on your own time, try and find some good sources to explain some of these settings better, just because I am not 100% certain how to properly explain some of these. But these settings are good for some people, and I think some people find them useful, mostly just for people that are looking to be in competitive gaming. I think these help a lot. The two that I want to talk about specifically are these two right here, Radeon Super Resolution and AMD Fluid Motion Frames 2.1. So, as you might know, AMD has FSR 4 already, which is a software implemented into certain games that allow you to do things like AI upscaling and frame gen, which is a nice feature to have. Although NVIDIA has a much larger presence in the gaming industry, or has had a larger presence for a long time, so most games support DLSS but don't support FSR. And AMD knew that this could be a major disadvantage to them, because most people might want to have access to features like that, and the given option would be to go to NVIDIA because they are supported on a much wider base. But AMD's response to that was to instead implement that same software into their Adrenaline app, so that you can get the same features out of a lot of games. I think games that support DirectX 11 or DirectX 12. Forgive me if I'm incorrect on that, but basically what it does is that instead of the game using the AI to predict your next move, your next frame and what resolution you need to be at, Adrenaline does that for you. So of course your Radeon Super Resolution is going to be your AI upscaler, And then AMD Fluid Motion Frames 2.1 is going to be your AI frame gen to boost your frame rate. Now, AMD has already come out and said that if you're playing a game that does support FSR, the FSR is preferred just because it works a little bit better. But if you're playing a game that does not support FSR, you do have these options available. I personally don't use them just because I prefer a pure native experience when playing games. I like the GPU to do its own processing on its own without the assistance of AI. I think that AI is better left to answering people's Google questions than to predict my game's frames. But I know some people like it. They like to see their frame rate be really high, and I understand that. So if you want that, it is there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said, there was a recording software here, but looks like they got rid of it. So that is the quick adrenaline tour I was going to give. Now, let's cut back to the rest of the video. Now, this will be my last update video for this series. My next video will be giving my final thoughts on my experience with my Radeon card, and will be followed by my decision of whether I am going back to NVIDIA or switching to AMD for good. Stay tuned for other tech-informative videos in the near future. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. See you later.